Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. Okay, in this video, I want to talk about the movie Summer of '84. But before I do, I have to preface this video by saying this is not going to be a formal movie review. For those of you who are relatively new to my channel or are new, if you're not new, you already know this, but if you are new or relatively new, I don't do formal movie reviews on this channel in the traditional sense, but every now and then I watch a movie that I feel like I want to talk about or give my first impression thoughts on. So that's what I'm going to do here. So this is not going to be a traditional movie review. So if you're looking for something a little more in depth, of Summer of '84, you may want to look elsewhere. But like I said, every now and then I watch a movie and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to give my thoughts on that. So that's what I'm going to do. So Summer of '84 is kind of hot right now in the horror community. But I wouldn't really classify it as a horror movie. Summer of '84 for me is more of a mystery thriller drama. I understand it falls under the horror umbrella because there's a lot of subgenres and, Summer of '84 I guess would be in there somewhere, but it's more of a mystery thriller drama to me. Now, Summer of '84 is an independent Canadian movie, by the way, but a lot of you guys didn't know that. It was shot right here in Canada in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia on the West Coast. I'm in Toronto on the East. But yeah, a good Canadian movie. And we do all right. Every now and then we dish out some pretty creepy, kind of fun, scary movies. Black Christmas. Canadian movie shot right here in Toronto. The sorority house is not too far away from me, by the way. It's still there. Looks a little different, but it's still there. And I even believe The Changeling with George C. Scott. I think that's a Canadian movie, or at the very least a co-production with the US, because I think it was shot in Montreal. But anyway, so Summer of '84, is like Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf, whatever the hell his name is. Disturbia meets Stranger Things. And I knew that going into the movie. I knew that before I sat down to watch the movie. I knew that. I saw the trailer some months ago, and it looked all right and it looked interesting. We're in that era now. We're in that throwback nostalgic era. They're doing it with TV shows. They're doing it with Netflix series. They're doing it with movies. And the whole concept of going back to the '80s and being a kid and riding your bike and playing He-Man and the pop culture and the references and, the adventure, the summer adventure and the Spielberg and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's sort of, we're thanks to Stranger Things, we're in that wave now. And Summer of '84 definitely rides on the coattails of that. So when it comes to that kind of thing, and I was a kid in the '80s, I was a teenager in the '90s, but I was a kid in the '80s, and I have two older brothers and an older sister. So, I remember the '80s pretty well. Definitely I get a kick out of watching these kinds of things. So, but when it comes to this kind of thing, like what we're talking about, the riding the bikes and the sense of adventure and the Spielbergs, Stranger Things is the bar. That's the bar. I can say after watching Summer of '84, that still is the bar. Stranger Things is still the bar. It's not that Summer of '84 is not a good movie. It actually surprised me. It's actually not a bad film. It's an independent film, so you have to keep that in mind. But it's actually pretty good. But I will say this. It took me about maybe a quarter or half the movie to get into it, to really sort of get comfortable with it, because I thought some of the acting between the kids was a little wooden at the beginning, and I thought their chemistry and their camaraderie wasn't quite there. When you have Stranger Things as your bar, or even arguably It from last year, the camaraderie and the acting and the chemistry between those kids as your bar, that's a lot to live up to. Okay, that's a lot to live up to. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the acting in Summer of '84 was bad or somehow it's like, oh my God, cringeworthy. No, not at all. I'm not saying that at all. It's just that the dynamic and the relationship and the chemistry and the camaraderie between the actors, between the characters, the believability level that these kids really are friends and they really, you buy that, like you believe they really are friends. There's a relationship there. There's a history there, was more believable in Stranger Things and more believable in It. Now, there could be many reasons for that, one of which is that the actors are just better. The kid actors in Stranger Things and It are just better actors. And yeah, they probably are. This is a low budget independent film. But it's not like watching an amateur movie or a home movie. I mean, this is a professional independent film here. The acting is fine. It's just the chemistry between the kids in Stranger Things. I just bought it more. But I am going to say that the good news is that I found the chemistry and that believability factor and that relationship actually got better. The camaraderie and the dynamic got more believable between the kids in summer of '84 as the movie progressed. So at least for me, I found the relationship got better. I think one of the things that I found awkward, or one of the things that may have made it awkward for me, is that because this is a low budget independent film, and because now when I say low budget, I don't mean $5,000. Okay, I'm just in the big picture. Okay, it's a low budget film. Because of that, they didn't have the money to, put in a lot of the big pop culture mainstream references that Stranger Things could, or that even it could. So they had to rely on a lot of the dialogue and the kibitzing back and forth between the kids talking about, shit that we would have talked about in the 80s as kids. Star Wars, your mom jokes, things like that. And because they may not have been as good of actors as the kids in Stranger Things and it were, it didn't come across as natural. I mean, obviously these kids didn't grow up in the 80s. Now, I mean, the kids in Stranger Things and in It didn't either, but they're just better actors, perhaps. These kids, it felt a little like, oh yeah, we got to fill a quota, right? We got to talk about Star Wars. We got to mention Spielberg. We got to mention this. And it didn't quite, I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Don't think it's bad. Don't think if you haven't seen the movie, you're going to watch the movie and you're going to be sitting there thinking, oh my God, holy shit. No, not at all. It's not like that. But like I said, the good news is that it got better as the movie went on. But one of the strengths of this movie was actually its score. Now, when the score began, clearly it was made for this movie, and it's synthy. Okay, it's because it's throwing back to the 80s, so it's a synth score. And that score plays for the vast majority of the movie, different variations of and different types, but the score of the movie plays for a large majority of that film. There's very few scenes, I mean, they are there, but there's very few of them where there's no music. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to feel on that. But I think they did that because they wanted to help gain that mood and atmosphere that this is the 80s. But what's really cool, and comment below and let me know if you guys pick this up, what's really cool about it is there are moments with the score, because it's synthy, and obviously they made the creative choice to have it sound very 80s, there's moments where it's Carpenter-esque. I don't mean as good as Carpenter. I just mean there's moments where it's like, oh, that sounds Carpenter-ish, right? Especially moments from Carpenter's The Fog. There's a couple of scenes where Davy Armstrong, our main protagonist, is talking to his buddies about, the shit that's going down. And there's that score that's playing underneath, and it's got like a fog kind of vibe to it. And I was sitting there going, oh, I'm kind of digging this. This is kind of cool. This is kind of interesting, right? So, I kind of liked it. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it at first, because I wasn't sure if you're playing it through a lot of them, but it actually worked. And it helped because you couldn't show, ads on TV and billboards from the 80s and, whatever it is. You had to rely on your setting and that score to really help that, yes, we're in 1984. So I like that. So, Summer of '84 is not a new story. It's been told before, obviously. It's an archetypal sort of, this kind of story's been told many times over, but I definitely liked some of the new stuff they brought into it. Essentially, of course, Davy Armstrong is a 15-year-old kid. It's the summer of 1984. He's hanging out with his buddies, and Davy is convinced, he's kind of a conspiracy theorist, but he's convinced that one of his next-door neighbors, who happens to be a police officer, seems like a nice guy, Davy is convinced that he is a murderer, and he's responsible for the missing children in the town who even he himself say he's looking for, right? Nothing really new or revolutionary there. That story has been told over. But when you tell it in this way, you bring that, Disturbia, but you bring the Stranger Things vibe into it, it's kind of cool, right? It's got that nice kind of vibe to it. I really like the way they, the actor who played the police officer, I really like the suspense in this movie. I thought they did a good job, and the suspense got better. Obviously, they're walking that fine line. The narrative is walking that fine line on, is the police officer this guy? Or is Davy Armstrong crazy? Is Davy Armstrong right? Or is the police officer a completely innocent guy? That fine line, they did that in Disturbia as well. I actually think they do it better in Summer of '84. I mean, we know how this movie's going to end up. I mean, we know this kind of story. But I think it's done better. There were moments where I'm watching this movie going, I kind of feel like the cop might be okay. And that there's going to be some, they do it so well that they put doubt in your mind that maybe there's a twist coming. Maybe there's a twist coming. Maybe this cop is going to be okay after all. They walk that fine line really good. I was impressed. Independent movie of this kind. I was impressed. Good job, guys. Good job. I liked it. I liked the suspense. The suspense got better. I think the movie got better as it went along. I think it starts a little kind of, I don't mean it's terrible. I just mean that it kind of starts sort of, I wish the chemistry was a bit better, like a little wooden, a little stiff. The movie begins a little stiff, but it gets better. So, so that's what I'm going to say on it. I don't want to spoil the movie for you, obviously. I want you guys to watch it yourself. But those are my first impression thoughts of Summer of '84. I dug it. I thought it was all right. Thought it was pretty good. The bar is still Stranger Things, okay? When it comes, again, to that being the kid in the 80s and feeling like a kid again, it's still Stranger Things. But Summer of '84 has got a charm to it. It's got a nice charm to it that I think it will become, it wouldn't surprise me if it became a cult classic. Yeah. I don't mean a cult, I mean, there's degrees, right? There's The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China, and then way down there might be Summer of '84, right? I'm not saying it's going to become that level of cult classic, but I think it's going to be one that people go, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was a cool little film. That was kind of cool. Yeah, it was good. It was good. Anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Have you guys seen Summer of '84 yet? If you haven't, I highly suggest you check it out. I think you will like it, especially if you were a kid growing up in the '80s. If you want to follow me on Facebook, you can at facebook.com/manythingsdavemcrae. McRae is MCRAE. Facebook.com/manythingsdavemcrae. That's where I tend to post in the meantime and in between time when I'm not posting here. If you want to help support the channel each and every month via Patreon, you can. The link is in the description for that as well. And if you want to check out my merch store, which I have online as well now too, that link is in the description. So in the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Cheers.